welcome to the Why of It All. This is episode 17, and we are here once again having our staycation, enjoying our time in this beautiful, beautiful home. And something that I was talking to Gina about this morning, was it this morning or was it yesterday?
This morning.
It was this morning. A topic that I had been chewing on for the last couple of days that we're going to talk about in today's episode is how do you know when you've healed? Like, there's no instruction manual. There's no medal of honor. Nobody gives you a certificate of completion. There's no award ceremony. How do you know when you've actually healed? So we have a fun episode planned today. We had a great conversation about this at the coffee shop this morning. And so let's get into it.
Yes.
So often in the healing space, we talk about the journey, the breakdowns, the breakthroughs, the tools, the triggers. But today we're asking a quieter, deeper question. How do you know when you're healed? In this episode, we're exploring the milestones of healing, the ones you almost don't notice until you've realized you've shifted. We'll unpack the false finish lines, true markers of integration, and how to stay connected to your growth without getting stuck in the obsession of always fixing yourself. So if you've ever wondered whether you're there yet or what there even means, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So one of the things that we were looking at today when we were having this conversation earlier is we were looking for what are those signs that you've healed? Like, what are the early signs of the change? And we were trying to think about it and identify for us on all different levels, emotional, physical, spiritual, mental, what the different signs of healing were. And the first thing that we talked about was the emotional, healing from emotional wounds. And what does that look like? And for me, what immediately came to my mind as my biggest signal for when I've healed through some emotional wound is that I'm no longer emotionally reactive to it. So it's something that I can think about or I can talk about or someone can ask me about and I can respond, and it stirs up nothing. I can just talk about it like I'm talking about the weather. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Like that's how I know I'm making progress is when something's brought up or I see a sign or I hear a song or I'm listening to a podcast and something brings me back, and what used to maybe trigger me emotionally months ago or even 2 months ago or 3 or 6 months ago doesn't have the same, I say sting, but sting or kind of a
charge to
it.
it.
Charge to it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I think that's definitely one of the ways that you can tell that, hey, you're on the right track. You're healing from this. Things are starting to feel more smooth, more balanced, and you're starting to kind of you're able to more emotionally regulate yourself when these things come up, when these triggers come up.
Or almost like you don't even need to emotionally regulate yourself because you're just emotionally regulated in that department. You're no longer in discordance with that subject anymore.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
I like what you said about when a song comes up or like there's some memory or something in your daily life that brings the subject matter up for you. That was something you used to emotionally react to. It's like a thing that triggers a memory or triggers an experience. Absolutely. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. Like I was in my mind thinking about conversations being triggers or not, but a memory, if you're not healed from something, a simple memory, if you still have that wound, is going to trigger a reaction.
A friend of mine had some major trauma that involved an area of town, like in our town. And so every time she would drive by this street, she would be triggered. She would literally be driving. Her hands would get sweaty. Her heart would race. She would get really which leads us into the physical, but she literally would have a visceral response. And I can't remember what she said and how long it took her, but it finally got to the point where years later, she could drive by that same street and her hands wouldn't sweat. Her heart wouldn't race. And that's when she knew.
Yeah.
She was like, wow, okay, I'm not having a visceral response to this location. It could be a location. It could be a song. It could be a color. It could be, a vehicle that you see drive by. Oh, wow, that's the vehicle that my ex used to drive. Or that's, anything for me can trigger a past memory of maybe a trauma or
Yeah.
something.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's important. So
Mm-hmm.
noticing the types of the different ways that you have historically reacted
Yes.
emotionally, or in this case, the visceral physical responses to
Cool.
something being triggered.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe this is a good reminder to take an inventory of that when you're still in it so that you can have the reference points for as you're going through your healing process. You
Mm-hmm.
can reference back to be like, wow, I am making really good progress because that stuff that used to happen is not happening anymore.
We were just talking about that this
Mhm.
morning. Like that, I think I was giving you examples of like how I know that I'm starting to heal, or how I know
Mhm.
that those things, it's not like I'm writing them down. I'm just being aware.
Being mindful of
I'm
it,
just
yeah.
being mindful. And I'm like, wow, you know what? That used to really get to me, or that used to really make me sad, or that used to really make me anxious. And now, if actually I had the same experience. I have a um, most previous relationship, and this person ex relationship, but this person lives on a street that unfortunately I have to frequent a lot
Mhm.
because it's close, like to work and to school and things like that. And there were months that I could not drive down that road. I would literally take a detour. If it took me 5 more minutes and I went and took the long way, that's what I did for
Mhm.
months. I mean, I had to work it through in therapy. Like one of my therapist's suggestions was, no, you're going to drive on that road. I want you to go right now. This is your homework. You're going to go right now and you're going to go drive on that road. And you're not going to maybe look down the side street where he lives, but you're going to keep going. And then you're going to pull over at this first safe space and you're going to write about it. And you're going to write about what you felt. So he was trying to put me in the emotion so that I could feel it. So that
Instead of avoiding it.
instead of avoid, but I was avoiding it.
Uh-huh.
I kept saying, I can't go down that road. I can't go down that road, Robbie. I don't want to, it's going to make me feel all these things. And he's like, no, your homework is you're going to. As soon as you leave here, you're going to get in your car and you're going to go down that road. And you're going to let the heart palpitate. You're going to let yourself feel scared and you're going to do it anyway. And then you're going to pull over and you're going to ride it. And I did it.
How,
I did it.
let's go. We're going to talk more about avoidance and
Oh,
the
mm-hmm.
sort of
Mm,
strategies that people subconsciously use to not
deal.
actually deal with things, not actually go through the healing process.
Yeah.
But I want to chew on that a little bit more. So, what was it like for you? Let's say the first time
Mm-hmm.
you were doing this homework and with intention,
Mm-hmm.
not just driving down it because you had to drive down that road,
Mm-hmm.
but the situation you had been avoiding,
Mm-hmm.
and then with intention, you no longer avoided it
Mm-hmm.
and went down that road. What was that like for you?
It was terrifying. It brought up all those physical feelings.
That you had been avoiding.
That I had been avoiding,
Yeah.
but that was exactly what I needed. But I don't know if I would, I mean, I guess eventually I would have maybe done it on my own, but I needed that push because that's what I was doing. I was avoiding the pain. I was scared. I was avoiding the visceral response when it didn't kill me. I drove right through and I was fine. I pulled over and I was like, okay, okay.
And when you did your journaling about it,
It,
where were you at with that?
I, it was hard. I remember through my tears writing. I remember sitting in the gas station driveway or parking lot and writing and crying and being so proud of myself. I was proud of myself. I
Oh,
remember
interesting.
I remember feeling proud of myself that I conquered that fear. And you could be listening to me right now, or somebody's listening to me and going, "That's so silly. How could you have? How could
No,
How could you have been so whatever to not go down that street?" But so many core traumas happened on that street.
I don't think that's unusual at all.
No,
And what this is reminding me of is,
what?
do you remember in the last episode, episode 16, when we were talking about parenting,
Yeah.
we talked a lot about how the cry response is your body releasing the emotional tension and the trauma and the anxiety.
Yeah.
See, I thought you were going to say, the reason I was asking you about it is I
Why?
thought you were going to say something along the lines of, it was really difficult for you and you were journaling and it was really hard and it was not a good feeling and you did it again and again and again until it got easier. But what you're saying is,
No.
no, it was really hard.
It
You had to
was.
force yourself to do it.
I-
But what you felt was overwhelming pride at the end, such to the point that you were crying actual tears, which is a huge emotional release.
It was.
That valve that you had kept sealed shut from avoidance that whole time, you made yourself go through it, and then boop, popped right open, and you vented out all of that tension.
And this opens up another conversation that we can go down, but like, don't we always make something scarier to be in our minds than when you really do it, it's not as scary?
Yeah.
Right? And so I had worked it up so much, the fear, the anxiety, the worry. And then once I finally drove right through it and did it, it's like it took it down several notches. Like it was still hard. Like I said, I acknowledged it was still hard, and I still cried, and I still had this like you said, opening the valve response. But I think through doing that, that was such a huge part of my healing journey from that traumatic experience and that traumatic relationship.
And you found the courage to make yourself do something that you've been so scared to do that you were avoiding it. I think that's a big, talking about celebrating the wins, right?
And I just have to say, I'm being completely vulnerable because I don't think I've shared that with anybody. Have I shared that with you, that story?
No.
Other than my therapist.
I don't think so.
Like, I think that's the only person that I shared how much anxiety.
Well, now you're telling everybody.
Now I'm telling everybody. So now the world knows, or whoever's listening to us knows. But that was a huge one of those steps in this journey.
Yeah.
Now, was I completely healed after that? No.
No, it takes time, but that it sounds to me like that was a big step. Like I imagine, had you not been encouraged to take that step and been given homework, which is almost like your therapist was giving you permission to find the courage, and then you were being held accountable to it. So you had your own inner motivation to find the courage. Had you not done it, I would imagine that your time from going from the fear and the avoidance to the healed state, at least in that micro example of what you were, the healing process from that relationship, would have been much, much longer.
That's what I was
like. You took a shortcut.
I did.
But it was not an avoidance shortcut. It was the exact opposite of that. It was the avoidance would have prolonged the pain. And you found the courage to cut that corner off.
Yeah. It's just like one of parts of that therapy, working with that therapist. I haven't seen him in a while, but he was so helpful. But if you've ever heard of EMDR therapy, that's where the therapist puts you right in that traumatic situation that happened to you, and you sit right in it. And you're slowly working at taking the charge out of the so that it doesn't have that hold on you anymore, so that you can
like revisiting it from a safe place,
feeling safe, feeling comforted, feeling supported, but still going through it, right? Because the only way out is through, right? And we talked about this earlier this morning about people who avoid, right? Going right through it. They just, it's an avoidance that, and I'm proud of us because I feel like we've always just gone straight head through for the most part. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't feel like I try to avoid, or that you try to avoid the shit that comes up.
It's because we don't want to sit in our shit.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit in my shit.
I don't.
I'm going to clear the shit out.
Yes.
If I know that there's shit there,
yes.
Let's figure it out. Let's get it gone so that I can move on to my happy, joyful life again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What about mental healing? We talked about some of the signposts of going through of mental pain. I think this is kind of where like anxiety comes in. We can attach anxiety as a sign of needing to do some mental healing in that department. And what we talked about was stopping the rumination. The rumination. You and I both have a tendency when we're triggered about something. Gina and we should tell them. We were laughing about it this morning.
Let's tell them the story.
Yeah, we have should we save that?
It's up to you. Do you want to save it?
Let's save it.
Let's save it.
There's a teaser for you guys for the next one.
To listen.
Yes, but we both have a tendency to do the rumination, to the overthinking, over planning. That's me. I'm the over planner. But that to me is a clear sign that I am healing from something that was an emotional or a mental trigger before is when I stop doing the overthinking
and the ruminating about it. And that when you finally free yourself of that, that's how you can feel like, oh, I'm a step further, right, in that journey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Another one was the clarity. Clarity on the situation. This is something we were kind of looking for more examples. Having a full 360-degree perspective on a situation rather than your emotional perspective. You know, we're thinking about mental aspects of how you know you've healed from something. Being able to look at this trigger situation and see the full truth of it, which probably is going to include what you consider to be the other person's perspective as well. And being able to step outside of your own perspective and look at the big picture, look at the truth of all of it, have a reasonable perspective, considering everyone's points of views and not just your emotional reactivity perspective.
Absolutely. What about the physical part of healing? Like we talked about that a little bit.
That's probably the easiest one to track as far as how
you
your
think?
progress is.
Yes.
I would say physical healing is the easiest one to track because you're
is.
looking for symptoms.
Yes.
You know, if
And
your
then
symptoms are subsiding and you feel better, that's a pretty dang clear thing.
We had this question. I think it's a great question, but Melanie, can you remember a moment when something used to wreck you emotionally, but now it barely touches you? Like now you completely don't have that emotional wreckage, like breakdown, take 2 hours to write a 2-page text. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you remember?
The biggest example, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, though, was losing a child, which is something that I would say many, if not most people who lose a child never heal. They never get to the point. I fully healed from that. And the way that I know that is I can literally be sitting here having this conversation. I have no emotional reaction at all. Not because I avoid the feelings or because I'm stuffing them, but because I legitimately, intentionally, completely went through a healing process, allowing myself to fully process those feelings and come into a state of allowance for what is. It is what happened. I couldn't change it. Couldn't change it then, can't change it now. And I used it as a springboard to find all the places within me at that time. This was a decade ago.
Right.
That were the opportunities in that moment to heal. And it wasn't easy.
No, it was intense.
Crushingly hard. It was the hardest thing I ever went through. But we did it with intention, and I don't remember which episode we talked about.
It was the very beginning.
It was the beginning,
the first few episodes.
And I can have this. I don't need to have. Here's another thing. Another sign to me of having healed through something is no need to talk about it. I don't need to ever talk about it.
You never bring it up.
I don't.
You actually never bring it up.
Usually, it comes up because someone else is asking me about it. Or in this context, we talk about it from time to time on this show for the purpose of using it as an example.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I'll be having a conversation with someone else and they'll tell me about their loss.
Yeah.
Or we'll be talking about grief processing and they'll ask me, how did I heal from that experience? So it comes up from time to time, but I don't need to talk about it. But if it does come up, I am perfectly comfortable talking about it.
And you don't
And I have zero emotional reaction. In fact, the last time it came up and I did have an emotional reaction, this did come up within the last year, but doing some reflection on that, because it kind of caught me by surprise. I was like what happened is in the conversation, I could feel the tightness in my throat. I could feel emotions coming up and my eyes starting to get a bit watery. And after the fact, I was like, wow, that was weird. I haven't had that come up in a long time. What is that about? Well, hold on. What was that about? And so I started asking the questions. What is it that I was actually emotionally reacting to? And the rest of the context of the conversation was that we were tracing back the origins of the decade of pain that I experienced afterwards. And it had never actually come into my consciousness that I started the decade of chronic pain within 6 months of losing that child. I had healed emotionally and mentally from the loss, but I had crammed the trauma into my body.
In your physical body.
And then there was a number of other things that came afterwards that just sort of amplified the whole thing, and the nervous system dysregulation and all of that. But in this conversation, discussing the loss of a child and having the emotional reaction, what the emotional reaction was actually to was the sudden, holy shit, aha moment of connecting the two dots and recognizing that I had never made the connection before.
Nice.
And then it gave me an opportunity to clear all of the ways that I had crammed trauma in my body on a physical level and hadn't addressed it. And I did.
You finally did.
Right. Yeah.
I think for me, to answer that same question, I think, and we talked about this morning, is usually when I'm feeling really low or struggling with an emotion or healing from past trauma, even more recent trauma, typically my go-to are my girlfriends, like my couple of really close friends that know what are going on in my life, like intimately, and typically needing to like call them and like talk and be like talking it through. Like in my brain, logically, I know this is part of the healing process, and logically, this is what is going on. But a lot of times I need that accountability or that other person to like speak truth to me, or to like basically validate what I'm saying. I'm a talker. I need to talk it out always. And for me, even more recent days, not needing that lifeline, like having something come up, feel it and be like, okay, I could text Melanie right now. I could send her an audio message and say, I really need to talk about this. And then there's just this moment where recently, even just recently, the last month, where I've been able to say, no, I'm going to sit here for a minute. I'm going to sit with this. Where's this coming from? I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to ask God to give me the strength and for God to heal my mind and soul and spirit. And that's been amazing. And that's how I've known I'm healing. I say healing, not healed, because I still think it's quite a journey.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I'm completely healed, but are you ever completely healed? Like, are we ever completely healed?
I believe that it is absolutely possible.
Yeah.
But as we've talked about a bazillion times,
Yeah.
healing is not a linear process. It's things will come in layers. And I think all of the things that show up in our lives, we've talked about this before, as the opportunities to get to something that you hadn't gotten to before. And sometimes we're going to chip away small triggers at a time. And sometimes, like the gigantic nut cruncher of a situation that we talked about a few episodes ago, that I've had in the last month, sometimes you get an opportunity to get a big chunk out. Maybe you pull the whole wound out, root and stem. And you know, in regards to that situation, I don't know if I pulled that whole long-term, probably the biggest, oldest, unhealed wound that I had, the fear of judgment of others. I don't know if I pulled the whole thing out, root and stem, in the last month, but it sure freaking feels like it right now. It feels like the biggest, most profound opportunity to address that fear head on and release it that I've ever had. And I feel like I freaking nailed it. It took time to process.
Yeah. But I think, honestly, if you're not completely healed from it, something will come up again that'll trigger you. So I'd be prepared
100%.
for that, right?
Absolutely.
Because like in 6 months from now or a year, something else is going to happen where you're going to feel judged, or you know, a friend is going to say something ugly, or you're going to be twisted about something. So it will present itself I feel like it will present itself if you haven't healed from it, right? I feel like
100%.
the universe will bring it back in
And
if
that's
you're
how
not.
it works.
That's how it works.
That's how it works.
That's
So
how,
sometimes you get
yeah,
an opportunity to take a big chunk, sometimes you're
yeah,
chipping away,
yeah.
and sometimes what you're doing is maybe you've cleared the big nut for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
but there's little there's little tendrils that connect
We're
to
talking about
different
nuts or
things.
tendrils?
Eh,
What are we talking
I
about?
know I'm mixing my metaphors here.
Love it.
Like it's what I said the other day. It's like I feel a little bit weird about it, but I'm almost in a twisted sort of way looking forward to the next opportunity that old fear would have been triggered to kind of see how I respond. Am I going to react or am I going to respond?
On the next episode of The Why of It All, Melanie responds with a very strong, has a strong
We'll
response.
see.
We're gonna
We'll see. But of course, what the aim is that as time goes on and we're being intentional with our work,
Yeah.
that as things come up, you find that you react less and less and less until
Absolutely.
eventually you don't react at all. Until eventually you can talk about losing a child and have zero emotional reaction about it.
Totally.
Yeah.
At the Why of It All, we are passionate about healing mind, spirit, and body. And that's why we're proud to be sponsored by a brand whose passion for wellness runs as deep as ours, Tulip Blooms. Tulip Blooms is a family-owned American small business that crafts premium skincare products with intention, purity, and so much heart. Today we want to highlight one of their original flagship products, Rainfall, a luxurious, lightweight face and body lotion that feels like a soft summer rain for your skin. Made with soothing aloe vera and a powerhouse blend of cold-pressed botanical oils like jojoba, rosehip, and evening primrose. Rainfall quenches thirsty skin, delivering lasting hydration with zero greasiness. Rainfall is gentle enough for the face, nourishing enough for the body, and the perfect daily go-to, especially after sun exposure when your skin craves extra care. Choose from calming scents like almond, lavender, or our favorite, rose geranium, or go fragrance-free. And with both full-size and travel-size options, your glow can go wherever you do. This isn't mass-produced skincare. It's handmade in small batches by real people who put real love into every bottle. Tulip Blooms offers more than just Rainfall, too. Think decadent body butters, facial serums, artisan soaps, and even beard oil for the guys. Whether you're looking to hydrate, heal, or just show your body a little more love, Tulip Bloom delivers high-vibe care you can feel good about because it's skincare rooted in nature, backed by integrity, and made with intention. Visit tulipblooms.shop and use our exclusive promo code HEAL, that's HEAL, at checkout for 10% off your order.
It didn't take, how do I say this? It wasn't an overnight thing to get to that. It took time. I felt way better in that process 4 months afterwards, but there was still time where I got triggered after that.
I think that's totally normal.
It's not actually normal. Most people are not
totally.
mostly healed from a loss like that after 4 months.
Well, no, I'm saying it's normal to still feel things after
Oh, for sure.
4 months with that kind of
Yes.
trauma and that kind of loss in your life.
Yeah.
I mean, my father died 3 years ago, and I still cry about it every week.
Yeah.
So I cried this morning talking about him. Did I not? I think I cried twice.
Yeah.
So,
But we were talking
That's
about a
grief.
good
Yeah.
aspect of the
Yeah.
recovery process. Around that.
yes,
Let's touch on too a little bit about spiritual healing. I loved what we came up with when we were talking about it, about trust in life having returned, like feeling like you can be present and present in each moment and have trust and hope for the future, hope and confidence in your life and what's coming, as opposed to the need to control everything in order to feel safe. Like getting back into a place where you have faith that you are okay and that you are safe.
that's where my spirituality comes in. That's where that's a huge part of my healing is the spiritual aspect of it. I have a very strong, intimate relationship with my God, and so I think that has definitely helped this journey. And I think we talked about it this morning, but like being able to wake up in the morning and do my little prayers and do my little, praying in my Bible app and going through those motions, starting the day like that, I think it really helps me to have that hope and have that faith. And it can just be in that day. Like I can wake up that morning, say my prayers, do my inner work, and be able to move through the day feeling so hopeful, having that little bit of a skip in my step, going, what's going to happen today? Like,
Yeah.
I could walk in to a place of business and meet the love of my life, or I could, run into somebody who I haven't seen in 20 years and reignite a friendship or a relationship with somebody that, I didn't have. I guess just having this hope and faith that everything's going to work out and that things are working for me
Yeah.
in my life. We've talked about that before in
Yeah.
another episode, but I think that's a very good spiritual practice to get into. But it's intention. It takes practice. It's just like with anything else. It's like with journaling or getting good at something. You have to practice that mindset. You have to intentionally get in to that mindset to stay there in that space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of a discipline, or learning how to stay in that place of feeling hopeful and feeling positive and having just a positive outlook on things. I think that can shift everything.
I think it's a confidence.
Yeah.
It's a confidence. Like, look,
Yes.
not every moment of every day is going to go the way that I would want it to go, but
Yeah.
it's having the confidence and the resilience to be able to like handle anything that shows up, because you've got faith in the direction that your life is going. You've got
Absolutely.
that hope and the optimism.
Absolutely. 100%.
Let's talk about, we had been discussing this morning, the false markers of healing. So like we're talking now about how do you know when you've healed? Well, what are some things that people often think are them
Working through
things, or they assume that they have healed from something when it's not actually that.
Don't you think a lot of people avoid?
Avoidance is it. Yeah.
Avoidance.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Absolutely. And I think it can look different ways,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely. I'll use my husband. I love you, Ben. Sorry. I'm going to use my husband as an example.
Yeah.
I'm one of the many reasons that I married him is because he is so freaking steady. Man, he is steady. Like, I do this. I'm doing much less of this and much more of this. The highs and the lows, but he is just this steady Eddie. He's a freaking rock. And that's one of the reasons I married him, because he's such a good balance for me. But what I will say is he's gone through some shit, man.
He really has.
He really has. And to his credit, he doesn't allow, most of the time, he doesn't allow the traumas of his past to affect his daily life. He's not stewing in anything. He's not being a victim. He appears from the outside to be what most people would consider healed from this. But what is very clear to me is, like, let's say, for example, we have an argument, which does not happen very often at all in our house, but occasionally it does. And I can see his reactions to his triggers.
Yeah.
In regards to me when we're having this, the person that you've chosen to spend your life with, that you've opened your heart to, is the person you'll be the most vulnerable with, who you will express what's deep inside will come pouring out the most easily with.
Of course.
And so I sometimes will see the side of him that is the unhealed wounds from his childhood. And it's so very clear to me. I can see him reacting to me the way as if I am one of the people in his life that created this trauma for him in his childhood. And I'll get caught off guard by it, because I'm like, why are you reacting to me this way that I didn't do what you said I did, or That's not, how do I explain this? Maybe details would be helpful. One of the things that he experienced as a child was the sort of attitude of, I'm the adult, you're the kid, your opinions don't matter. And so oftentimes when we get into an argument, his default reactive state is, but you're not letting me have my opinion. And I'm like, that's a bunch of bullshit. I am desperate for your opinion. Please, please, please open up and share your thoughts and opinions with me. But he's got that reactivity, and he's still got that internal trigger, that internal limitation program of, I'm not allowed to have an opinion. And his way of handling that belief, his way of handling those old wounds is to just cram them deep down inside and never look at them ever again. But they still come up.
I think a lot of people do that.
Very, very many.
A lot of people do
Very,
that.
very many. And it gets him by in his day-to-day life most of the time just fine. It's just the world according to Melanie is, why would you want to hold on to that? Why would you want to keep that in there? And what are all the ways that it's actually affecting you? That's just one little example, but what are all the ways that is affecting you in your day-to-day life, keeping you small? I'm not allowed to have an opinion. I'm not allowed to that holding on to that belief inside and the resistance to that belief is going to keep you small. I wouldn't, for me, ever want to keep that inside. I'd want to clear that out. But avoidance, what avoidance really is we've talked about the trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, fawn.
There's like 7.
That's
There's 3 more. But
there is. I can never remember what they are either.
all
We
of
should
them.
probably look
They're
that
all
up.
Fs, I think.
Are they?
7 Fs.
That would be actually convenient.
Yeah.
Avoidance is a freeze response. Yeah, that's what that is.
And I think a lot of people are scared to go there because, let's be honest, it's kind of hard for people to bring up those painful moments or those very traumatic moments. There's a lot of fear, I think, associated with laying it out on the table and dealing with it. And I think it's scary for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people, again, are fearful of feeling all those things. It's hard to sit with it. It's hard to sit and just feel it. I think avoidance is one of the biggest. I think a lot of people freeze. So
it takes a lot of courage and resilience and determination to be willing to let that come up and sit with it and deal with it. It's not easy.
And so if you're listening and you kind of are resonating with that, I think just give yourself grace for being where you're at right now.
Yes.
But just realize that you are capable of healing that trauma. You are capable of going through, of stepping on the fire coals and walking past them and getting over on the other side and doing it. And so I just want to encourage our listeners, if you're one of those where you freeze, when something comes up that's just too hard and you, I don't know, get on your phone or doom scroll or try to distract. I mean, and we're all guilty, right? You're right. I'm not trying to sit up here and act like I am
This is not a shame session at all.
No, this is not no, we're all, it's all right. It's a journey. It's not the destination, it's the journey. But
imagine what life would be like and what you could be capable of and how much growth and expansion would be possible for you if you weren't carrying that burden around anymore. Yeah. How much space could be freed up if you were able to let go, not just not look at or not think about it anymore, but actually be free of it. Freedom. If you could liberate yourself from the wounds of the past, what would life be like for you?
Ooh, that's good, Melanie.
Well, you freaking set me up for it beautifully.
This is why we started our podcast. This is why we want to talk about these things. We have a special relationship. We have a gift of, we're starting to realize through recording ourselves and being live that we have a gift of playing off each other.
Yeah.
Right? Don't we?
Absolutely.
We really do that very, very well.
Yeah. You're like the segue queen.
I mean, you are too. We're both a segue. We are. We're both queens.
I love it. I love it.
Anyway.
So what we're talking about here is instead of emotional suppression, we're talking about resolution.
Yeah.
It's very simple. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. What else?
We took so many notes, but we
don't need all of
we
them.
don't, because we always say we're going to take all these notes, but then you know what? The episode is just going to be what it's going to be, and it's going to happen organically. But we make a lot of notes. But one of the things that I'm looking at right now, and that we've talked about, and that you've helped me get through, or when I'm having those conversations with Melanie, and we're talking about this healing journey, I maybe come to her and explain something. And this is again talking about, how do you know you're healed? How do you know, is it happening? And we were having a hard conversation, I don't know, maybe a month ago. And Melanie's like, but think about, I can't wait till you can look back at this traumatic experience and see this as a gift. See this as an opportunity to learn. And being able to think back about that experience for yourself, being able to look back at that time in your life with such gratitude. And I don't know if I'm there quite yet, but I'm on my way, and that feels good. And just having that conversation and knowing that it's coming, knowing that we're gonna have this conversation again, and you're gonna check in with me. You're gonna go, how are you doing with that? How are you doing with that trauma? How are you doing? How do you feel? And I can't wait till I can look at you and say, what a gift that was. What a gift that experience was. Yeah. Because it made me realize what I don't want and what I do want. And so it's cleared the path.
Clarity is a very, very beautiful thing.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And so that was one of those powerful conversations that we should have had. We should have been recording. We should have been recording, because it was so.
We keep forgetting to do that. We have these, we have these kinds of conversations when we're not recording all the time.
We do.
Like, what we need to start doing is, we talked about this too, is just like get our phone out and hit the voice memo and just record it completely off the cuff.
And like this morning, we're having our coffee out by the pool, like sitting and sipping our coffee, and we start talking. I'm like, let's save this for the podcast. Let's save it. Save it.
The problem is that we didn't write down what those things were that we were supposed to say for the podcast, and now I can't remember what they were.
Maybe we already went over them.
I wouldn't remember if we did.
Anyway, who knows? If it's important enough to share, we will share it. Yeah. In an episode to come.
Yeah. But this whole thing about looking back at your past, the experiences that we have, the difficult moments, the adversity, the traumas, the painful triggers, the relationships, all these different things that we go through that stir shit up in us. Mm-hmm. This talking about looking at them as a gift and an opportunity is literally my favorite thing to talk about. Mm-hmm. And I really do try to look at every single one of these things and dissect it in real time and in moments immediately thereafter as I'm working through something, with the expressed purpose of finding the opportunity, looking for what is it that I believe that everything, I've said this 1,000 times, everything is happening to me. I'm sorry, mess that up. That's backwards. Everything is happening for me. Nothing is happening to me. Mm-hmm. All of these experiences that show up from time to time are giving me that opportunity to to hone in on the unhealed wounds from the past and heal them just a little bit more, sometimes a lot more. And I don't want to miss one of those opportunities. Why? Yeah. Because I want to get to the point in life where I'm in a state of joy dang near all the time. Like I don't believe that you ever just get to utopia. I don't necessarily believe in this pie in the sky utopia thing where everything is perfect all the time, because
in the secular world.
Because I think that the potential for growth and expansion is infinite. So I think one of the great things about being here and being in a physical body and living this physical life experience is to continue to expand, to continue to grow, to continue to step into creativity and what else is possible. We need that contrast to generate the expansion. We grow outside of our comfort zone. So it is in our best interest as souls who have been sent here to be in this body to experience life here,
Mhm.
to have moments of contrast, to give us the impulse,
Mhm.
the what's the momentum
Mhm.
to grow and expand. We have to have the uncomfortable moments to do that.
Well, that's what creates resilience and
Absolutely.
fortitude, right?
Mhm.
So if you've never been through anything hard,
Mhm.
if you've been given this sweet life and you've never had to work for anything, you've never had to push through anything, well, where's the growth in that?
They tend to be the
where's the
most
growth in that?
miserable, shallow people there
Mhm.
are.
So until you're going through
Mhm.
the thick of things, until you're going through hard things, you don't develop that fortitude
Mhm.
and those character building life experiences
Mhm.
that shape you into who you're meant to be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I
And
feel like that too.
so what we're talking about here is having as a hallmark of healing
Mm-hmm.
is when you can have these kinds of conversations and look back at your past experiences and your triggers
Mm-hmm.
and have genuine gratitude
Mm-hmm.
for the experience.
Mhm.
Or maybe if it's an interpersonal conflict,
Mm-hmm.
genuine, maybe it's gratitude, or maybe
Mhm.
it's just honoring this person for who
Mhm.
they are and the role that they played in providing you the opportunity to grow.
Yeah. And I would piggyback on that too, and telling anybody who's listening, and for us too, to celebrate those little wins, to celebrate those little milestones. Like I have a girlfriend that we've gone through similar things together with traumatic relationships and abusive relationships. And until you've been or involved in anything like that, can't really understand it 100%. And so we'd have these conversations, whether it's text or audio message or whatever, and I would maybe admit that I fell off, or I admit that, I was having a weak moment, or I felt strong. And she would always say to me, you know what, Gina, it's baby steps.
Mm.
It's baby steps. You are making baby steps, even if it's just a little progress that you're making, acknowledge that progress, acknowledge the win, acknowledge the little milestone, and give yourself a break.
Yeah.
Like, give yourself a break. Stop. Like, it's okay. Like, who says that you have to be completely healed from this situation in 6 months or 9 months or a year? There's no timeline on it. It's so give yourself permission to celebrate those little wins, and to realize that sometimes this healing, again, we talked about being linear, but it can be something very small every day or every week, and to celebrate the little steps that you're taking.
You got to squeeze every last luscious drop out of those wins, especially when you're still in your healing journey. That is, we talked about this. Was that last episode or the one before that?
Every episode, probably.
Whatever.
We've talked about. I talked about.
I can't keep track. I think it's important. I call it milking the wins.
For sure.
It's important. I want to milk a win right now. Can I do that?
Go ahead.
You guys remember a couple episodes when I was talking about this big kerfuffle that I had, this biggest ever trigger for the fear of judgment of others. And there was these two individuals that I got caught kind of in the middle of a conflict. And on the one side was a person that I highly respected, that when I shared my heart and my intention and my perspective with this person, expecting that the response would be understanding, what I got was just ice freaking cold and no acknowledgement of my feelings at all whatsoever. It sent me into this tailspin, which gave me the opportunity to deal with the fear of judgment of others, but we already talked about that. So the win here for me, since we're talking about having gratitude for the triggers and how they have you grow, is in the last few days with this, it was a delightful aha that I got, an awareness of, I actually don't have any real negative feelings towards this person. It was, I was struggling with that early on when I was in the weeks immediately following it. But in this moment, I can look at the situation and I can have compassion for this person's perspective. I don't like the way that treated me,
Mhm.
and I can set up boundaries
Mhm.
going forward in
Mhm.
terms of respecting myself enough to not allow people to treat me that way anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
But in this moment, I can have compassion for their perspective. It's
Good.
fine.
That's
I can have
great.
I can have compassion for their perspective, and I can still recognize all of everything that's wonderful about that person. This is what we've talked about in the past, the rattlesnake analogy. I'll tell you guys the rattlesnake analogy. A rattlesnake is a creature that you can look at and you can know that this creature was beautifully designed for its role in the environment. It is a perfect predator for its prey. Incredible camouflage, incredible set of, incredible methods for catching its prey. It's a really well designed creature, but you don't pick it up and play with it. You can recognize its value, you can recognize its gifts and its talents and abilities, but you don't pick it up and play with it. You can apply this to people in your life. When you've had an experience with someone and they've showed you who they are and what they're capable of in terms of how they treat you or disrespect you, you don't then have to go into judgment. It's possible to, and maybe you can't get there in the immediate term, maybe this is something you have to get to later in life, but I'll use this person as an example. I can still recognize and value this person's unique role in the world, the talents and abilities that they have, the incredible insights and awarenesses that they have provided for me, and that they're really, really, really good at what they do.
That doesn't mean they need to be in your orbit though.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Or
So,
I can recognize all those things about this person, and I could, if I'm really doing well and I'm in a very healed place, I can be in their orbit, but I'm not going to pick them up and play with them. I'm not going to seek out opportunities to interact. I can I can be I can be in a space and have no judgment, but also know that this is not somebody I'm going to continue to interact with.
well, it's like that Maya Angelou quote, like when people show you who they are, believe them.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's just that when people
Yeah.
show you their true colors,
Mm-hmm.
or when a snake bites, you don't pick it back up or you don't ask it why it bit. You just again recognize it for what it is and who they are.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yep.
Anything else
Say.
you want to say, Mel? I think this was a great episode.
I think so too.
Is there anything else you want to touch on?
Just closing thoughts, remembering that again, as always, healing is not a linear process. Don't forget to celebrate the wins, and paying attention to your healing process and where you are, and remembering to honor those moments and be looking for how your reactivity is changing over time.
And also, we want to know your wins. So comment, leave us a message. We listen, we read everything. So leave a comment. Let us know. Celebrate. What's your win this week, or what's your win in this last 6 months or the last year? Like, we want to know.
Yeah.
We care about the people on the other side of the screen. So anyway, that's why we're doing this.
Give us a like, give us a follow, subscribe, whatever platform you're on. If you would hit that little button down there, a good friend of mine who's a podcaster calls it the positive affirmation button, which I think is adorable. If you would hit that positive affirmation button, that is really the best way to support this podcast. And that's a wrap. I think.
That's it.
We love you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.